Hello everybody and welcome to the first of the CM and GLA lessons. Today we'll be going over Block 2's Week 1 math lesson, and that'll be using the awesome Maths and English book for ages 9 to 11. So in this book obviously we're going to be focusing on the mathematics portion of this, and this lesson is suitable, as I say, for people in both CM and GL, provided you're in Year 5. So I'm Luke Lloyd, let's go straight into it. So to begin with, obviously this is the planning document, just to talk through what we're going to be looking at today. First maths lesson, it's vitally important in maths that we make sure we have a really strong basics. The basics we're looking at today are going to be our addition and subtraction. We're going to start with some smaller words. We're going to make sure we have a strong, repeatable, reliable method for doing both, and we're going to apply that as rapidly as we can to many of the following questions. So addition and subtraction, let's just jump straight into it and see how we get on. So obviously it's this book, please, that we're looking into. And the first page numbers we're looking at are pages 10 and 11. So I can even write that down for us, pages 10 and 11 inside the book. So if you can find that for me, please do. Let's even bring over a copy of the book so anyone joins us. Jolly good, here we are. So pages 10 and 11, you will find the first set of addition questions. Now, this book here is really good. It's got some fun facts, so by all means pause the video and read through. You'll learn not just a bit of maths as you're going through this back. It's very similar to the old Wild About Maths book we used to use, where you get these fantastic little fact files, which I love. And by all means, if you see me, tell me the ones you've remembered as we go through this. But we're going to be beginning together with task 1 down here as our first initial part. So in this one, we're working out sums in our head and we're thinking out the best ways to do them. So what I suggest you do is there are 5 questions, A through E. Take a moment now to do your best. Give them your best go in your head. Again, using it in your head. And then unpause the video when you're ready to hear me go through and talk about how I would have handled each of these. Right here, I'm about to go through them, so if you've not tried them, pause now, otherwise let's talk about them. So A, calculate 38 plus 43. Now I'm going to write this down, but I'm only writing it down to sort of represent what's going on in my head, because obviously it's hard for you just listening. So when I'm doing 38 plus 43, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the tens and the units. So I'm going to do 30 plus 40 in my head, and hold whatever that equals, and I'm going to do 8 plus 3 in my head. And so I'm going to have 70 and 11, and together I'm going to add those, and this is something I can do in my head, to get 81. So I think the answer for the first one is that we get a total of 81. Again, I would not have written this down because it was in my head, but this is to represent sort of the steps I was doing to work out that first sum. So that is the working out that I did to get the answer to number 1. B, increase 87 by 54. Well, this is just another way of them asking a very similar question type. Again, increase simply means to add, so it's one of our key words. So again, I'm going to do the same method. I'm going to have 87 and 54. I'm going to separate out the tens and units, so I'm going to do 80 plus 50 in my head, which I can tell equals 130. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to do then 7 plus 4. And when I do 7 plus 4, I end up with 11. And now I can remember those two numbers in my head. 130 plus 11, I can add together to get a total of 141, which is my answer for B. Gets a bit more challenging now. This question, again, in your head, I probably wouldn't do in my head. But because it's told me to do so, I'm going to give it a go. So I've got 8, 7, 2, 1, plus 1, 2, 6, 8. Goodness gracious me. Now again, you can see I've already set out as if I'm leaning towards the column, but I think the point is it's trying to teach me something, this book. It's trying to teach me how hard this one is. So let's go through. So I need to do the tens first. So I'm going to add, let's do it the way they intended. So put them together. But I'm still going to, in my head, do the same method. So I'm going to do the thousands first. So I'm going to do 8,000 plus 1,000 is 9,000. I'm going to do 700 plus 200, which is 900. I'm going to do 20 plus 6, plus 60, which is 80. And I'm going to do 1 plus 8, which is 9. And then these, if I can manage to hold them in my head long enough, I'm going to add them together. So I've got 9,000 plus 900 plus 80 plus 9, which gives us a total of 9,989. So, although that was a toughie, all red so it stands 3 notes together, it would be possible to do that in your head, although I think perhaps harder than you to be. And in fact, we'll come back to that because I want to show you that one, how what we've just done applies. Let's just quickly finish off the last ones. So 416, oh, I'm in a 5 for some reason. 416 plus 57. Again, I'm going to add the 10 and the 50 together, which makes 60. I still had the 400 left over that I've not really added anything to, so make a note of that. And then the 6 plus the 7, which is 13. So now I need to add 60 and 13 to make 73 plus 400. So that becomes 473 as much as my answer. Ooh, let's just fill in the 9989 here. And then finally, we've got 804 plus 296. So we need to do 800 and 200, which equals 1,000. We've then got 90 plus nothing, so just plus the 90. And then we've got 4 plus 6, which equals 10. That just equals 90. So now we've got 1,000 plus 90 plus 10, which is 1,100, final answer. Now, what I'm hoping you'll have learned from this exercise, because this is not something I necessarily recommend doing in your head, is one, it is possible sometimes to do mental maths in your head. Again, all of these things, although I wrote them down just to explain sort of what I was doing in my head, and so you could sort of follow my maths, you could actually have done these all in your head if you needed to. But what I hope you see is it's not necessarily the fastest thing. Certainly if you found some of these middle ones more challenging, so that one in red I thought was really quite tough to sort of hold all those different features in your head at one point, and actually this one here to sort of in green to work out what you were carrying is quite challenging. And so the method we want to make sure you're able to use, and also the method I want to make sure that you understand, if I let me hide this one to the side here, there you go, so we can now use an example. Look at all this working we've done that was either in our head or we had to write down so we could keep track of it. And let's now see how, when we do a column addition, which is the method that we prefer at Teacher, right? Let's see how all this working gets incorporated, but it takes much less space and therefore, hopefully, much less time. So the first thing with column addition, it's really important to set things out, you can see a message there, in order. So for example, I'm going to do everything in place value. So this is my now thousands. So I've got 8,721. So when I now come to write 1,268, I'm going to make sure the 1,000 is exactly underneath the 8, the 200 is exactly under the 700, the 60 is exactly under the 20, and the 8 is exactly under the 1. And if you've got a book with columns or with dots, use them. You use the squares to keep it nice and ordered. If you don't, if you've got an empty space line, just make a real effort to keep it nicely lined up because it will make your working much clearer. We now write a line, and I tend to leave a little space and put a plus so I can just keep track of the instruction if I'm doing an addition or subtraction. And now let's look at the maths we did here, but in reverse order. So we said in our head we did 1 plus 8 was 9. Well, look, 1 plus 8 is 9. We did 20 plus 60 is 80. Well, here, look, 2 plus 6 is 8. But because it's in the tens column, that's actually 20 plus 60 is 80. We've then got the hundreds column here. So that gives us 700 plus 200 is 900. Well, look, 700 plus 200 is 900. And I've written the 9 in the nines column. So that means that 9 here is a 900. And then we've got the thousands column, where we've got 8,000 plus 1,000 is 9,000. And we get our same answer of 9,989. But hopefully you can see with a lot less pain and a lot less effort and hopefully a lot less time. So this just goes to show the advantages and what it really nicely actually explains what the column method does. By putting them on top of each other like this, we don't then have to write out all the zeros. And also we can just turn 8,000 plus 1,000 to sort of 8 plus 1 and we get 9. As long as we write the 9 in the thousands column, it works out really well. Again, I'll do one more example for green because it shows the advantages of what happens when you're carrying values. So let's do the same thing. So we've got 804 plus 296. Keeping them really careful to be in the columns, we write the plus. I've now got 4 plus 6, which is 10. And we say that we carry the 1, write the 0. We then had, and you may have noticed here, look, when we did 4 plus 6, we had a 10, and that 10 and 90 combined. Well, look here, we've got 0 plus 9, which is the 90, plus the 1, which came from the 10, so 90 plus 10 becomes 100. So we carry the 1 of the hundreds into the hundreds column. We write a 0 there. And look, we can see that we're forming the same value here that we had before, because now when we do 800 plus 200 plus the 100 from before, or the 8 plus 2 plus 1, we get 11. But that 11, because we've got it in the right place, becomes not 11, but becomes the 1100 that were here. We get the same answer, but again, much faster, much more easily. I should write units, shouldn't I, at the end for there? That's the units column. So those are two examples, and this is something I would have made you done in the class with me. I'd have had you guys attempt C and E in your heads, and if anyone struggled, I would have then immediately put them on to trying to do them using the column method, because it just demonstrates to you how good the lovely column method is and how useful it is. So those are the answers, and those are a bit of extra help. And if you did struggle with any of the other ones to do them in your head, I suggest go back and by all means do A, B, and D using the column method and see if it's easier, see if it's faster and works for you. One of the most important tips I can say for all maths, and this is something that a lot of our students will find, especially when they're trying to do things in their head, it takes them longer to do it in their head than if they'd just buckled down and used a method. And so if you're looking at a question, it's 5-10 seconds, you still haven't started writing because you're not quite sure, don't worry about doing it ahead, just use a method. And this can be, as we'll see over the coming block, it may be column addition, column subtraction, it might be multiplication, again using column methods or using lattice methods. It may be when we're doing dividing, things like the bus stop. But whatever method you know and use, don't be afraid to just get stuck in straight away with that method. Don't feel like you're going to have to mix things up and do things in your head that end up taking longer than if you'd just gotten on with the method. Right, moving on. I would like you then, please, to try and do task 2. And for these, I'm going to leave it to you whether you solve task 2 in your head or you use the column method. Because actually, now that you've seen the column method, I'm quite happy that if you want to use it, you can. But again, if you can do the methods in your head, absolutely do. I think that should be fine as well. So again, just task 2, I suggest pause the video here, complete task A, B, and C, and when you're ready for me to go through it with you, resume playing the video. Okay, here I go. Let's run through task 2 now. So the sea otter's body and head measures 55 centimeters, and its tail is 15 centimeters. So we're adding 15. So what's its total length? Well, 5 plus 5 is going to be 10. And then we have 5 plus 1 plus 1 is 70. So I get 70 centimeters. I would have probably penalised you if you hadn't written centimeters in your answer. Don't need centimeters in your working out, but in your final answer, if they have units, which it does here, in this case centimeters, you need to have them written down. So that might have caught a few of you out. Let's see. And if not, just add it in now. You might quickly want to add in some units for B and C before I get to them. But let's look at B. So we have 38 plus 27. And again, 8 plus 7 is 15, so carry the 1, write the 5. And we've then got 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 65. And again, 65 kilograms. Really important that if they give you the units, you follow those units through and carry them on. And the final question, sea otters dive to a depth of 18, but one has dived a further 77. So how deep did this particular otter dive? Well, that's 77 plus the 18 that he was already dove down to. And again, 8 plus 7 gives us 15. And we've got 7 plus 1 plus 1 is 9. So that means he dived to a total depth of 95 meters. Final answer. Again, if you're being particularly nice, I'd give you 1 mark for the answer, 1 mark for the units. But if I was being particularly nasty, I'd say unless you have the units, you don't get the mark, even if the number is correct. So I'll let you decide whether I'm being nice or nasty. And we'll go through it from there. Right, well done. So that's the first 3 questions. And again, I do think these ones you probably could have done in your head. provided you then remembered the units, but I'll leave the working there so if anyone can copy them if they need it. Right, on now to task 3. So there's 2 questions here, 2 column addition questions. Give these a go, and it now says for these, please use the columnar method. The columnar method is a column addition method, so using columns. So off you go, make a start for me with these. And again, shouldn't be hopefully more than about 2 minutes. When you're ready to look back, unpause the video. Okay, I'm about to go through them. So here we have task 3. So it says the number of sea otters in one habitat increased from 487 by another 2,457. So how many are there now? So if it's increased by an amount, it means we have to add that amount on. For me, I always like to do the large number on top. So 24,523. And to that, we're going to add 487. Notice how that I don't add in, and I see people do this sometimes, I don't add in these commas. Some people sort of like to add in commas. I suggest never doing those in your working because the last thing you want either the marker or yourself to do is to mistake them with a dot. And suddenly adding 24.523 to 487 is very, very different to adding 24,000. So my advice is you can leave a gap, so I've left a slight gap here, but don't add in sort of dashes or commas or dots or anything here that may confuse either the marker or yourself when you're working through them. So leave it nice and clear, but do instead just keep things in their place value columns. Right, let's get to adding. So 3 and 7 gives us 10. We've then got 2 plus 8 plus the 1 we carried, which is 11. So 11, carry the 1, write the 0. We've then got 5 plus 4 plus 1 gives us 10. So carry the 1, write the 0. And now we've got 4 plus the 1 is 5,002. So I got an answer for task 3 of 25,010. And again, in terms of units, the units would be otters. So since that is, that is a number, don't worry about the units for that one. I don't think you need them. Or if you wanted to, you could write otters at the end, I suppose, and that would be the units. Right, part B. Let's put that to the side here. You can still see it. Part B, the sea otters in another habit decreased by 235 to a population of 249. How many were there before? So we've got to think about this. So that the habit decreased by this amount to this amount. So how many were there before? Well, we have to add the two values together to find out what they were before. So this one required a little bit of thought. It wasn't a subtraction, so unlucky if you got caught out. I suppose the clue was we were in the addition page, so it wasn't a subtraction. But we need to do 549 plus 235 to get our answer. Because again, we're going back to what it was before. This is the number we have now, and it was this much larger before. We have to add them together to see what it was before. So 9 plus 5 is 14. 1, carry the 1. We've then got 4 plus 3 plus the additional 1 is 8. Again, the 40 plus 30 plus 10 is 80 is what I should say. And then we've got the 500 plus the 200 is 700. So 784 is the answer. Okay. And again, there's our working off to the side. The last thing I want you to do for me now, please, is the exploring further. The exploring further are not optional, as some people always seem to ask me. In fact, I would argue that the exploring further is the real crux of the lesson. This is the real part that I want to make sure you understand how to do. So spend as long as you need on the exploring further to work these out, but these are the real good questions, the real tough ones that I want to make sure you're happy in answering. So again, pause the video here. When you're ready to see the answers and mark them along with me, let's look at A, B, and C together. Okay, everyone, I'm going to go through. So if you're not ready, pause it. Otherwise, here we go. So looking now, exploring further A, it says there were 47,683 sea otters in one coastline and 39,578 along another. How many altogether? So that was another thing. How many in total are there? Altogether or total means add. So let's add them and find out. So 47,683 plus 39,578. Again, notice I'm keeping them in their columns, a slight gap. I'm not putting these commas in because that can confuse me. And now let's get to adding. So 3 plus 8 is 11. 80 plus 70 plus 10 is 160. 600 plus 500 plus another 100 is 1200. We've then got 7,000 plus 9,000 plus another 1,000 is 10,000 plus the 7, so 17,000. So now we have 40,000 plus 30,000 plus an additional 10,000 gives a total of 80,000. So I think the answer is 87,261. That's my final answer. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you can see how I went through, used the column method, and got the answer without too much difficulty. Now, B. There were 17,299 otters along a third stretch of coastline. How many were there in total of the three? Okay, well, this is good. It's like a combined question. So we need to take our value from before, our 87,261, and add to it 17,299. Now, if you have a different value for the first one, it's possible that you may have added these together. And so I don't mind if you want to get a calculator if you're at home to just check if you did have a different part A value. We call this error carried forward. For me now, I'm not sure in the exam this would be the case, but for me now, if you had a different value but you added it correctly, I might still give you the mark for doing the second sum correctly. But hopefully you got the first, and hopefully this is where you're ready to go. And let's now see what our value turns out as what the answer should be. So 1 plus 9 is 10. We've then got the 10 plus the 90 plus the 60 to get 160. We've now got 200 plus 200 plus 100, so that's 500. 7,000 plus 7,000 is 14,000, so put 1 in there, the 4 there. And now 80,000 plus 10,000 plus another 10,000 is 100,000. So now it goes into the 100,000s column. So we have a final answer of 104,560 otters across all three coastlines. And then it says, check your answer to B by rounding all the figures to the nearest 1,000 and writing out the sum. So in order to check, it wants to make sure we're in the approximate right ballpark. So I think what it wants us to do is to round our starting values to the nearest 1,000 and see how close we are. So by rounding all the figures and writing out the sum. Yeah, so if we were to write these out, so we would have 50,000 for this first number of otters, 40,000 for the second number of otters, and we would have had 20,000 for the last group of otters. And that's based on the input figures. And then if we rounded our two values, we would have had 90,000 based on this one from before, 90,000 plus 20,000 if we're adding on 17. So I'm not sure which of these they mean, I must say, in terms of rounding. We can check at the end. Together, and if we add those values together, we'll see we got 1,000, or rather 110,000. And here, again, fill in the zeros, and we would have had, 110,000 again. So the values agree. And if we look at our answer, is our answer close to 110,000? I would say yes, it is. So I'm pretty confident that we're in the right ballpark. I suppose one of the things that would be very, very revealing is if when you rounded it and added them all together, if your answer was completely different, like if it was 10 times bigger or 10 times smaller, you would have a very different answer. And so I suppose they're testing our rounding skills here just to make sure we're in the right ballpark. I say we are certainly correct for these two. And so if you've got something to this effect where you've rounded it, and I suppose if we then rounded ours would round, depending on what we round to the nearest 1,000. Oh, I see, hang on, we round to the nearest 1,000. Excuse me, everyone, I round to the nearest, not 1,000, 10,000, right, scratch that. I was going to say, let's see. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000, let's underline my keywords. I bet you're all shouting at your computers, no, Mr. Lloyd, no, you've done it wrong. Right, to the nearest 1,000, this would be 48,000. plus 40,000, because that would round up to 40. Yep, that would round up to 48. And then this one here would round up to 18. Okay, let's try this one. And if I add these together, again, all the zeros collapse quite nicely. We've then got 8 plus nothing plus 8, so that's 16. And we've now got 4 plus 4, which is 8 plus 1. Yep, so we get 106,000. So that's our answer based on rounding. And then if we were to add here, well, we get 105,000 if we just rounded up that number from before, which is pretty close. So we can check that we're very much in the right ballpark. Perhaps that's what it means in terms of checking. But again, I'm confident now, well, very confident now, that we're in very much the right area, the right ballpark. And so I think we can say, yeah, those are good. Again, and if we were massively off, if we had like a 1 here, or we didn't have this one, it was 96,000, we'd know we're wrong. So it's a nice little method. Okay, then we're going to move on now to the subtraction section. I think subtraction. Let me just check. Gonna have to find out what page I'm going to assume it's the next page. I'll just quickly find out for us. What page numbers are the subtractions on? Let's see. And if you manage to find the page, by all means start now on task 1, which again are a set of questions you can begin. Yeah, it was the next page, so it's just pages 12 and 13. Pages 12 to 13 is what we're doing now. Begin task 1, and as soon as you're ready to go through the answers, pause the video now, and as soon as you're ready to see the answers, unpause the video. Okay, everyone, let's just go through them together. Again, with subtraction here, we're going to just whiz through them. So we've got 85 and 42. So 5 take away 2 is 3. 8 take away 4 is 4. So the answer is 43 for number 1. For number 2, so B, we've got find the difference between these two. So again, if you're ever doing find the difference, you need to put the larger one on top. 689 subtract 457. Again, putting minus signs here to show what I'm doing. So 9 take away 7 is 2. 8 take away 5 is, not 4, it's 3. And then 6 take away 4 is 2. So 232. Part C, subtract 440 away from 2,980. So 2,980. Subtract 440. So we get 0, 4, 5, and 2. So 2,540. We've then got subtract 463. And to take away from it, we want to take away 48. So for this, we can't do 3 take away 8. So I'm sure you've seen this before. You have to borrow from the 6, making that a 5, which means now we can, instead of considering it as a 3, since we've borrowed a 10, we can add 10 on to the 3, making it now 13. And 13 take away 8 you can do, so 13 take away 8 gives you 5. So we now have 50 take away 40, which leaves us with one single value of 10, again, which is why it's in the tens column. So the answer is 410 and 5, or add that together, you get 415. This next one, we have 657 take away 83. So 7 take away 3 is 4. We've now got 50 take away 80. We can't do 50 take away 80, but if we borrow from the hundreds, making the 600s 500s, we've now freed up 100, so we can add that on. So instead of having just 50, we can now say we've got 150, and 150 take away 80 we can do. The same way 15 take away 8 is 70. The same way 15 take away 8 is 7. 150 take away 80 is 70. So we can afford to write 70 in the tens column there, and then we just have the 500s left over. So my final answer is 574. Then for part F, we've got 341. subtract 159. Want to do 1 take away 9, I can't, so I have to borrow from the tens, so that becomes 30, which frees up 10, so we now got 11 take away 9, which is 2. Again, I want to do 30 take away 50, I can't, so I'm going to have to borrow again, so that becomes, oops, sorry, not a 3, but a 2, so 200, so I've now freed up 100, so I've now got 130 take away 50 that I can do, that gives me 80, so I write the 8 in the tens column, and now I've got 200 take away 100, which is 182. So 182 is my answer. Let's just tidy these up off the side. Still got some room to continue working. It's a nice thing I can do on my computer that obviously you guys can't do in real life. Move your working around to give yourself more space. But we're now looking at G. So how much greater? That's another way of saying what's the difference. And whenever you're looking at the difference, it's a subtraction. You're taking away the two values. So the difference between these two will be 121 take away 55. Same again, got to borrow, meaning it's 11 take away 5, which gives us 6. We've got now 10 take away 50, we can't, so we have to borrow. And again, 11 take away 5 is 6, so the answer is 66. Change color again. Take away 97 from 333, so 333 goes on top, because we're taking 97 away from it, so the 97 goes on the bottom. 3 take away 7 I can't do, so I've got to borrow, which frees up now 13 take away 7 I can do, that's 6. Again, I can't take away 90 away from 20, so I have to borrow, going 200, making that 120. Now 120 take away 90 you can do, that leaves you with 30. And then the 2 from before is left over, so 236. And then finally, for number I, what is 57 less? That's another way of doing a subtraction. So it's to take away 57. And again, it's just worth going back and considering all the different ways they've been able to ask the same question, just so you can spot them if it ever comes up for you. But again, we want to do 5 take away 7, so borrow, that becomes 1. So now we've got 15 take away 7, which is 8. We've then got to borrow again, take 11 take away 5 is 6, and 4 take away nothing is 4. So my final answer is 468. God, well done, everybody. Hopefully that followed. Hopefully it was nice just to sort of see how I set them out and how I would do these sums. Right. Any questions? Obviously, get in contact. But otherwise, on to the next one. Oh, that's not the next one. That's the same one again. Right. Let me try my cut and pasting skills. Obviously, need some work. Here it is. Right. Are we ready? Snip this. And here we have what the next page. Let's make that fit to page. And this is obviously now the following page. I think what, page 13 probably of your book, but for you it'll just be on the other side. So for here, I suggest work your way through task 2, then come back and check in with me, and then we'll do 3, and then we'll do the exploring further, exactly the same as before, and that way you can just keep checking in. So pause the video now. When you're ready, we'll run through task 2 together. Okay, here I go. Task 2 is as follows. So the wingspan is 350. A herring's wingspan is 174. What's the difference? Well, as I said, a difference is always a subtraction. So the difference between these two will be 350 take away 174. And if I do that, I get, well, 0 take 4 I can't do, so I have to borrow. And now 10 take away 4 is 6. 4 take 7 I can't, so I have to borrow. But 14 take away 7 I can do, that leaves me with 7. 200 take away 100 is 100. So my answer is 176 is the difference between the two. Good question here. So 9,500 take away what equals 7,479. The best way to do this is to set yourself up a different question. What it's saying is basically saying, what's the difference between these two values? And as we discussed earlier, to find the difference we subtract. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 9,500, excuse me, subtract 7,479. And whatever the difference between these two is, must be what we took away from 9,500 to get this answer. So this is a very naughty way of them asking a different subtraction question, which I think is quite cool actually. So let's whiz through it. So 9 take away nothing I can't do, so I want to borrow from here. There's nothing to borrow, so I have to borrow from the next one. That means my 500 becomes 400. But this means this now becomes a 10. And now it's a 10, I can borrow from it, so it becomes a 9, which turns this into a 10. And then we can do 10 take away 9, gives us 1. 9 take away 7 gives us 2. 4 take away 4 is nothing. 9,000 take away 7,000 is 2,000. So we're left with 2,021 as being the number we would need to take away. And you're more than welcome, if you've got a little calculator nearby, to then just check it. That number take away that number will equal that number. How clever is that? Right, part C. Again, very similar question. This number, add what gets you to this number? Well, we need to find out what the difference is, because the difference in these numbers will be what we have added on. So 87,250 subtract 85,500. If we subtract the two, the difference will be what was added on. So 0 take away 0, nice and easy, 0. 5 take away 0 is still 5. 2 take away 5 we can't do, so we have to borrow from the 7, becoming 6, becoming 1. Or sorry, becoming 12. Now 12 take away 5, or again, 1,200 take away 500. Again, it's always important to be able to, in your mind, say the true number, not just 12 take 5, but to say 1,200 take away 500, because it helps make you understand why we're writing the answers in the bits we are. So in this case, if we have 1,200 take away 500, we get 700, which is again why we wrote the 7 in the 700s. I keep saying it, but that's because it's so important to get in. 6,000 take away 5,000 is 1,000, and 80,000 take away 80,000 is nothing. So the final answer, we would need to have added on 1,750. That's our answer. Okay, everybody, for this last section then, or it's actually second last section because we've got task and exploring further. For task 3, just work your way through for me, complete the sums on as many of these as you can. Again, unpause the video when you're ready for me to go through the answers. Okay, so I'm going to start going through the answers now. Let's hope you're all ready. I'm going to get these out of the way. That'll do. So you can still see them, but I've got room to type. Now, for these following things, I wonder, can I... Oh, this will be clever. Let's see if I make that larger. Oh, look at this. I might be able to draw on here. All right, there you go. Clever clogs. So if we just go through now and fill in the answers for these, we've always got 0 take 7, we can't, so that becomes an 8, which becomes a 10, so now we have 3. Then 8 take away 2 is 6, and 5 take away 3 is 2, so 2, 6, 3 for the first one. Then for B, 5 take 7 is 2, can't do the next, so carry 3 and 1, so now 12 take away 9 is 3, 3 take 2 is 1, 9 take 7 is 2. Then again, we can't do 1 take away 9, so we borrow from here. 11 take away 9 is 2. 1 take away 4 we can't do, so we borrow, becoming a 7, becoming 11. 11 take away 4 we can do, so that's going to be 7. We've now got 7 take away 9 we can't do, so we've got to borrow again. Got a lot of borrowing in these. So now 17 take away 9 is 8. 6 take away 1 is 5. And then 3 take away 2 is 1. Now, one thing I'll note, I found it a bit harder as well, because these aren't nicely in their columns, I found it a bit harder. So if you never needed to rewrite these questions, absolutely feel free to. In your books, enlarged, and this is true for any question in an exam, if you ever found the way that set it out was undesirable, set it out yourself in a way that makes it easier to write upon. Now again, hopefully you've managed, but for me, if that was my exam, I may well choose to rewrite that with a bit more space. Let's see how I get on with here. Maybe if I use a slightly thinner pencil, I'll be able to get through it all. So 5 take away 7 is 2. We've then got 6 take away 9, can't do it. Can't borrow from there, so I've got to borrow from here. Which means this now becomes not a 4, but a 3, which just means 10, which gets turned into a 9 as we borrow from it, which makes this a 16. 16 take away 9 is 7. We've now got 9 take away 2, which is another 7. 3 take away 9 we can't do, so we've got to borrow from the 8, making that a 7, making that a 13. And now 13 take away 9 is 4. And 7 take away 6 is 1. So 14,772. Then for E, again, going to have to go the right way through the borrowing. I can't do 0 take away 2, so I can't borrow from here, but I can from here, making that a 0, making that a 10, which makes it a 9, and I borrow from this to make this a 10. So 10 take away 2 is 8, 9 take away 3 is 6, 0 take away 7 I can't do, but I can borrow from this to make that a 4, which makes this a 10. Now 10 take away 7 is 3. 4 take away 9 I can't do, so I borrow from here, which means this becomes a 3 and that becomes a 14. 14 take away 9 I can do, that's a 5. 3 take away 8 I can't do, which means I borrow from here, making that a 1 and that a 13. 13 take away 8 we can do, that is 5. And 1 just becomes a 1. Whew, so the answer is 155,368 for E. Final question then, we've got 500,000 take away 61,158. So we're going to do lots of borrowing. So in fact, can't, we can, so that becomes 4, which means this becomes a 10, which becomes a 9, which means this becomes a 10, which becomes a 9, which means this becomes a 10, becomes a 9, which means this becomes a 10, becomes a 9, which means this becomes a 10. God, that was actually quite fun. So 10 take away 8 is 2, 9 take away 5 is 4, 9 take away 1 is 8, 9 take away 1 is 8, 9 take away 6 is 3, and 4 take away nothing is 4. So the final answer is 438,842, which sounds good to me. So again, guys, those are your answers. Make sure they make sense to you and you're happy with them. I'm just going to then group that and then shrink it off to the side. Actually, no, what I'll do, I'll overlay it. Oh, there you go. It's a perfect place for it. So there you can see there's the working if you need to see the answers. But hopefully that made sense. Hopefully if there were any mistakes, you were able to pick up on them by following my maths there. What I suggest we now do is the exploring further, and this will be the last bit of exercise of today, so you've done really, really well. Again, pause the video, take as long as you need, and once you've done A, B, and C, or at least given it a good go and gotten to the point where you're stuck, then unpause the video and watch it with me, and we'll go through it together. Right, everyone, last one. Good luck. And welcome back, hopefully. So I'm now going to go through it together. So these are the last questions. So, a wandering albatross flew A, that far, and that far over a 3-year period. Another albatross called B flew that far, and that far. How far did each albatross fly? Oh my goodness. Well, in total, we're going to have to add them all together. Yeah, so I think we need to do albatross A flew, this is going to be an add, so 1,001, 250 plus the second year's distance plus the third year's distance, going further and further each year. Very impressive. So we've got 0, 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12, 2 plus 7 is 9, plus 1 is 10, plus another 1 is 11. We've then got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, and 3. So the first albatross flew 305,120 kilometers. Again, do include the units in your answer. So kilometers. I had to just squeeze that in there. Okay. Then albatross B, same thing. We're going to add all the values. So 100,001,425 plus 101,675 plus 101,910 kilometers. Add all of these up. We're going to have the following answer. So 2 plus 7, 9, 10, 11. So 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 16, so 20, plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, so it's 5, 0, and 1. So these are our two values. So the first albatross, oh sorry, no, they're not. That should be a 3, not a 1, I think. That's why I said that. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So we've got 3,005 kilometers, 120, and 305,000 kilometers, and 10. So those are two differences. So 3, 0, 5, 0, 1, 0. So which kilometers, sorry, which bird flew further? Well, this one did. Albatross A went further. Let's color code it since we've got some color coding going on. We might as well use it. So Albatross A went the furthest. And then finally, by how much? Well, again, that's just a difference question. So let's just take them away from each other. So we've got 305,120 subtract 305,010. So the difference between these two values will be how much further it flew. So 0 take away 0 is 0, 2 take away 1 is 1, 1 take away nothing is 1, 5 take away 5 is nothing, nothing, and nothing. So the answer is 110 kilometers, which sounds like an awful lot, but actually out of the total distance they flew over the 3 years, it's not an absolutely massive difference, is it? So there you go, everyone. That is my working out, and hopefully that made sense. Now, before we finish the lesson, obviously, again, I do encourage you to read these lovely facts about albatrosses and so on and so forth. They're really cool. And I would also like you, please, to turn to the final page. I think this is page like 110 at the very back of your book. And you do need to just fill in for me our confidence levels. So what I would be suggesting is, first off, make sure you can find subtraction addition. I'll let you find it. It's the picture of the albatross and the picture of the seal, which are the two fact files you read about. But essentially, you need to do green, amber, and red, and this should really match the same kind of scoring process as your homework. So if you got it virtually all correct, so I would say, 80% or 90% plus, you can give yourself a green. If you got over half of it correct, but not everything, there was either some silly mistakes, you didn't quite manage to finish it, I would shade it in yellow or orange. And again, if you don't have the color pens, you could always write G for green, Y for yellow, and R for red in the box. And then finally, if you got less than a half of it right, so you got under 50% overall, then I would definitely do a red for needs more practice. And what then you would do for practice is obviously look at the homework. That'll be the first place to find more practice. But also, obviously, for things like addition and subtraction, there's loads of resources online. If you speak to your tutor after the lesson, they can guide you on things. We'll have things on our portal that you can use. So there's loads of things out there. But certainly, if you need more practice, homework and your tutor are a great place to start, as well as all the wonderful things you can find on the internet to help practice as well. So again, I'm just going to fill that in. For me, I'm feeling pretty good. So I'm going to do tick subtraction, tick the addition, and I'm going to give myself a green on addition, maybe a yellow just for fun on the subtraction, because I could have done it faster. And if the yellow doesn't stand out, maybe I'll use an orange, because I think orange actually looks better. There you go. And that way I can see how much of the thing that I finished and how much of the book I've done. Right, everyone, final thing just to talk about before we finish, obviously spellings next week. Please make sure that this was the week 1 lesson, so in week 2, we'll be now testing you on these spellings. So these are the words you have to learn, so please make sure these are done before next lesson. Obviously, you'll have the half term to go through these potentially, which is fantastic. If you got lucky, well done. Otherwise, again, just get these ready. And then also, of course, the homework, and here are the homework pages. And it does make a little note here, which is worth saying. At this stage, I'm more interested in you doing the homework thoroughly and completely and getting a good mark than I am rushing. So if it does say, this should take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, that's fine. Use that as guidance, but I would much rather you kept working and you finished everything than you rushed through it and made silly mistakes. So for all of these, please just finish them as best you can. Right, everyone, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was useful. This was the GLA and CM Block 2 Week 1 lesson on maths. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.